Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be talking about some pretty fascinating stuff today. We asked you to share excerpts from Cy Ogulnick's book, Leadership, Power, and Consequences.
Right.
And so, we really want to, take apart the most powerful ideas in here. We really want to understand what Ogulnick is trying to tell us about leadership and how it plays out,
Yeah.
in the world. And
And he comes at this, from a lot of different angles.
yeah,
You look at his background, he's worked with children's programs and, he's focused on these workplace dynamics and consulting. So he's really, seen people interacting in all these different ways.
right.
And I think that really feeds into that central argument that he makes. Leaders are often the primary problem and the answer when it comes to issues that arise in the workplace.
Yeah, it makes you kind of stop and think about,
Yeah.
how often the approach of someone who's in charge, or maybe even not officially in charge,
Hmm.
but sort of acting as a leader, how that really shapes the whole environment and, any problems
The whole
that
dynamic.
come up. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So our goal in this deep dive isn't to give you like three quick fixes for managing people, right?
Yeah.
It's really to
Right.
help you understand your own influence, whether you're, leading a team at work or just kind of, figuring out how to navigate relationships with other humans. We're talking about
Okay.
personal growth here, not about
Not about manipulation.
manipulation. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so let's dive into Ogulnick's central argument about the role of the leader.
Yeah, the role of the leader. Well, he says consistently that leaders are often at the heart of challenges in the workplace.
Right.
But equally, they hold the key to overcoming them. So, think about it in your own situations that you've been in.
Yeah.
How often is it the case that, whoever's leading,
Whether formally or informally,
yeah,
that they're really the ones that shape whether there are problems or not.
yeah, and Ogulnick really makes a clear distinction between entrepreneurs and leaders.
Right.
He doesn't see those as necessarily
Interesting.
interchangeable.
No, I think he really feels that entrepreneurs, they're the innovators, the ones who get things started.
Right.
But the leader has this other set of responsibilities, particularly when it comes to these, interpersonal dynamics.
Yeah, yeah. And that's key for him, isn't it? This whole idea of
The human element.
yeah, the human element.
Yeah. Because the entrepreneur can be driven by the vision, the market need.
Right.
The leader really has to be attuned to the people
Yeah.
and how those people are working together.
Yeah. And so for Ogulnick, at the foundation of that is self-awareness.
Well, absolutely.
This idea of knowing thyself.
Yeah.
Which, is interesting because he doesn't define that as like solitary introspection. Right.
He doesn't. It's about actively seeking
Yeah.
feedback from what he calls your inner circle.
Right.
So those people whose opinions you trust, whose perspectives you value.
Right.
So it requires openness, right?
Yeah, yeah. To really hear and understand how your actions are perceived by others.
Yeah, and often there's a gap between, what we intend and the impact that we actually have.
Right.
So this is really about having a dialogue, a
Yeah.
sincere willingness to hear what other people are telling you
Yeah.
about how they see you.
And one of the things that I found really empowering about his work is this idea that leadership qualities aren't fixed.
Right.
They're largely learned,
Yes.
which is so
Without sure.
encouraging
Right.
because it means that, you're not stuck with
Right. You're not stuck with a bad leadership style
right.
or whatever it is.
You can evolve.
Yeah.
You can
improve.
Mhm.
And he makes it very clear that his work isn't about providing a set of techniques to manage or control people.
Right.
This is really about personal evolution. It's about becoming a more effective and authentic individual.
Yeah, so we've looked at the leader's role and the importance of self-awareness.
Right.
Let's delve into Ogulnick's perspective on power.
Okay.
So he observes that power is felt, feared, valued, hated, envied, and yet it's not power itself that's the core issue.
That's how it's used.
It's how it's used,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was so insightful is this point that he makes that many of our difficulties
Yeah.
begin when we become conditioned to meet the expectations of others.
Yeah, think about that for yourself,
Yeah.
How much do we, sometimes unconsciously even adjust our behavior to fit in, to
Yeah.
satisfy these external pressures?
Totally.
And he would argue that influence isn't about conforming to those expectations.
Right.
It's about operating authentically within your sphere of influence.
And that leads directly to this whole idea of vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Which Ogulnick posits that if you truly want to get the best from others, you have to be perceived
As
as
vulnerable.
safe, respectful,
Right.
and that might seem counterintuitive to some people because, the traditional image of a leader,
It does. It's not
yeah.
the image of unyielding strength and
Right.
total certainty.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's arguing that willingness to be open and to acknowledge your imperfections
Right.
actually builds trust and respect.
Right.
Because when the leader isn't afraid to show their human side,
Right.
it creates a more secure environment for other people to do the same.
Yeah.
So, to take risks,
Yeah.
to put forward their most creative ideas without fear of being judged.
Totally. And he also talks about how, inconsistency or unclear intentions from a leader can breed insecurity
It does.
in other people. Right.
Absolutely.
That makes them kind of hesitant and
Right. They don't know
how to act.
what's wanted or what's safe.
Yeah, yeah. And then he uses this great analogy of leaders as a contagion.
Yes.
Right.
For better or for worse.
For better or for
It
worse.
uses that image of a contagion.
Their behavior has this huge impact.
It does. So you can imagine a leader who operates with negativity, criticism.
Right.
That really infects the entire team's morale,
Yeah.
their productivity, their creativity.
Yeah.
Whereas, the leader who's optimistic, who's supportive, who's transparent,
Yeah.
cultivates this, a much healthier and more effective environment.
Totally.
Yeah. And he makes this crucial distinction between using power for the common good
Right.
versus manipulating people for personal gain.
Right. Right.
He feels that genuine respect for those being led is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, and power, it's not a static thing that
Yeah,
you
it's not.
possess. Right.
Right.
Ogulnick says that power is external
It is.
and transient, and it's really experienced by those who are
It is. It's
relational,
right.
Not something you hold in isolation.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might hold a title, you might have formal authority.
Yeah.
But your power really lies in the impact you have on others.
Right. And I think that speaks to another point he makes, which is that
Yeah.
leaders often point fingers when things go wrong rather than examining their own contribution.
Right. Yeah.
He really draws a link there to leading by example.
Yeah.
Particularly in terms of things like openness and candor.
Right.
If you want your team to be straightforward with you,
Right.
you need to model that behavior yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. And that kind of brings us naturally to this next, key concept from the book, this idea of growth and vulnerability as being kind of essential foundations for effective leadership.
Ogulnick, he talks about how a lot of leaders are really hesitant to engage in genuine self-reflection,
Right.
and to, actually develop others to take on leadership.
To bring others along.
Responsibilities.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? I wonder why that is. I mean, and maybe there's a fear of being replaced.
Right, yeah.
Or maybe it's just not.
We're just not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Consciously.
Consciously realizing how important that is.
Right, right.
But he's very clear that, personal growth is an internal journey.
Yeah.
That demands courage and a lifelong commitment to learning.
Yeah.
So you need to approach life as a perpetual student,
Right.
but particularly a student of your own behaviors and patterns.
Yeah. And then he reinforces this idea of vulnerability as really only being able to emerge when individuals feel a sense of safety and security. So it's not about, just revealing all your weaknesses indiscriminately, right?
No, it's about
fostering.
It's about fostering an environment.
An environment where it's okay to be imperfect.
Yes.
To acknowledge mistakes.
Yes.
And to seek support.
Right. Absolutely. It's about psychological safety.
Yeah, and he talks about there's this mutually beneficial relationship between effective mentors and leaders.
There is.
And those that they guide.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of reciprocal need for development there.
Yeah.
So the mentor is offering guidance and experience,
Yeah.
and the person being mentored
Right.
is bringing, fresh perspectives and
Keeps the mentor sharp.
keeping the mentor sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good dynamic.
Yeah, and Ogulnick says when a leader prioritizes their own growth,
Mm-hmm.
it creates this ripple effect.
It does.
It encourages and supports the growth of everyone around them.
Yeah.
Yeah. He talks about, growing during the process of living.
Mm-hmm.
So emphasizing the importance of
Of learning.
learning from your experiences,
Mhm.
both the successes and the
Yeah. The setbacks.
setbacks.
Yeah. It's about being a mindful learner
Yeah.
in the day-to-day.
Yeah, and he says, leaders are constantly serving as role models and educators,
They are,
whether they intend to or not.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just about, what they say,
Right.
it's about their behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Their empathy, their active listening,
Yeah.
the level of trust that they extend,
Right.
and whether they cultivate genuine dialogue.
Right.
These actions speak so loudly.
Yeah. Yeah, and he talks about, how difficult it is to self-assess.
Right.
I mean, we all struggle with that, right?
Absolutely.
To see our own,
Yeah.
you know,
On blind spots.
blind spots, and so
Yeah.
that's where, the feedback from your inner circle
Becomes so important.
becomes so vital because, as Ogulnick says,
Yeah.
people's perceptions of us shape their interactions with us.
Absolutely.
So we really have to listen to what those close to us are telling us.
Yeah. And I think, a really important point that he makes is that vulnerability is not a deficiency.
Right.
It's an act of courage.
Yeah.
It takes real inner strength to be truly open, to be authentic. And, that internal development directly affects how we engage with the world
Right.
and the people in it.
Yeah. He also emphasizes that the importance of, recognizing teachable moments.
Right.
And taking personal accountability for your own development. So,
Yeah.
so we've looked at the leader's role, the complexities of power, the importance of growth
Right.
and vulnerability.
Right.
Let's turn to what Ogulnick calls genuine dialogue.
Okay. Genuine dialogue, GD, he calls it.
VD.
Yeah.
He defines it as communication that is unfiltered, open, and creatively engaging between individuals.
Yeah.
Think about for a minute, how often do you really experience?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
That kind of,
Uninhibited.
uninhibited free exchange in
Oh.
your interactions.
Probably less often than we'd like.
Right, yeah. And he lays out these 4 conditions that he says
He does. 4 conditions.
have to be present for genuine dialogue
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Yeah.
So the first is a deep respect for the inherent uniqueness of each individual.
Right. So he's really saying people can only truly flourish
Yeah.
and perform at their best when their individuality is acknowledged
Right.
and valued.
Yeah. And then the second is being fully present in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Completely engaged in the conversation.
Right. Not distracted, not
Without thinking about something else.
right.
Without
Yeah,
having one ear out the door.
exactly. And the third is confirmation,
Mm-hmm.
which he defines as really listening.
Yeah. Demonstrating that you understand
Right.
the other person's perspective.
Yeah, not just hearing their words,
Or
but
just the
the
word.
meaning,
Right. The meaning.
the intent,
Yeah. And then the 4th condition is candor.
candor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that honest,
Oh,
sincere,
yeah.
authentic communication
Right.
where individuals feel safe to express,
Yeah.
their true feelings and thoughts
Right.
without, fear of negative repercussions.
And he really emphasizes that, all humans
Yeah.
have a need for dialogue
Mm-hmm.
to be understood.
Our understanding,
Yeah.
mutuality, respect.
Yeah. And that's what genuine dialogue provides.
Yeah. He describes it as a state of clarity
Right.
and purity in communication,
Mhm.
a true two-way.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
As opposed to a monologue
Right.
where one person dominates the exchange.
And again, he comes back to vulnerability
Yeah.
and says, for genuine dialogue to thrive,
Mm-hmm.
the leader has to be perceived as open.
Yeah. Open to being vulnerable themselves.
Right. To create that
Like safe space.
safe space for honest
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive into Cy Ogulnick's
Yeah.
leadership, power and consequences to a close,
Okay.
we're seeing these really interconnected themes.
We are. I mean, the responsibility of the leader, the nature of power,
Yeah.
the need for growth,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of embracing vulnerability,
Yeah.
the power of genuine dialogue.
Yeah. And I hope, as you've been listening, you've
Mm-hmm.
been kind of thinking about your own experiences,
Mm-hmm.
the dynamics in your relationships, at work, through this lens that
Yeah.
Ogulnick's giving us.
Through this framework, I think
Yeah.
it's really valuable for
Yeah.
understanding
Totally.
why things play out as they do,
Yeah.
where there might be opportunity for evolution.
So with that in mind, here's a final thought to consider.
Okay.
Given that Ogulnick really emphasizes self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
and the insights that we gain from the perspectives of our inner circle.
Right. What's one aspect of your own leadership, however you define that,
Mm-hmm.
that you could explore further
Yeah.
through open dialogue with those
That's a really
closest to you?
good question for all of us to think about, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really all about this ongoing journey of self-discovery and understanding.
I think, leadership in its most authentic form
Yeah.
is about continuous growth and genuine human connection.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thank you.
And we encourage you to keep reflecting on these ideas.
Yeah, and how they
resonate in your own life.
in your life, your interactions with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.